So welcome. This is the first session of the second day of the IROD UGM 2020. And our first speaker is Kieran Murphy from Agriculture Victoria. He's going to talk about his efforts with SmartFarm data management. Thank you, Kieran.
Thanks a lot, Terrell. Hi, everybody. From Melbourne, Australia at 11:30 p.m. So excited to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to jump on board and continue the work with the team. It's been, just into our second year of the membership now, and last year this is where we got to with last year, and I'm looking forward to where we go this year. So thanks to yourself, Terrell, and Regan initially, and obviously Jason and Dave and Daniel, who I've worked with. So yeah, just to go through a bit of context quickly, is working in this Agriculture Victoria research business. So it's a science arm of the department, of our Agriculture Victoria department. There's a key bits of our mission statement and what we do, but basically we've got 6 science branches within this portfolio. You see them: genomics, cellular sciences, microbiosciences, pests and diseases, plant sciences, plant production, animal production, and ag resource sciences. That's the group that I belong to. I'm working here today. We do a lot of the spatial science team, the soil, water and landscape team, and our sort of enabling group that I work in, where we look after different technologies and innovations and support pretty much a lot of the other businesses with capability in that space. So that's how we started in our journey. But ultimately, we're an outcome-focused innovation agenda with a clear mission: science and technology for productivity and biosecurity. There's a map of the state of Victoria with all our sites, and I'll show you that on the next slide. So what we do is we run this virtual smart farm. One of our projects is to run a virtual smart farm. It's about connecting our AgVic research innovation system using immersive digital technologies, linking this, what we call SmartFarms, with AgriBio, which is our biosciences centre based in Melbourne, through this online experience. So there's all different capabilities. We'll run through that, and obviously today's one's around SmartFarm data management and the work we're doing with IRODs and the team to help enable that. As you can see down the bottom of this slide, the state is pretty Victoria produces a fair share of Australia's agricultural commodity outputs, punched above the weight really for the size of the state, and we're a pretty diverse, geographically dispersed state. So all the way up to the north of the state, up at Madura, where we grow all our citrus and table grapes, predominantly wine grapes to a lesser extent now. Big almond productions up there. Down here to Horsham, which is our grain production, main area of the state. Down to Hamilton, which is pretty much pastures, red meat, especially there, prime lamb. Across here to Bundoora, where Jason and Dave have been, visited our Biosciences Centre. Tatura, where we do the stone fruit, Rubber Glenmore wine grapes, and Ellenbank's pretty much the hub of our dairy research. What is the hub of our dairy research, and massive dairy industry down there. So today, the virtual smart farm, we have a bit of a strategy with our data smart future ready strategy. That's how we're on this journey with IRODs. We're enabling the business through our hub and spokes connectivity to work in increase the tools and efficiency of our science by improving data management and how we do that. There's a journey now. The use case we're talking about today, and we've only got a short time, so I'm just going to touch on it and keep an eye on the time so don't go over. I know you're not going to let me. But we'll talk about this unmanned aerial vehicles, the drone fleet, the exponential growth we've had in this fleet, which is the reason why we've got our journey today, because we've expanded our capability in this collection of data using this fleet that has caused a need for greater efforts in how we actually manage the data we collect and do our analysis and do our storage, our discovery of that data once it's at rest or wherever it's stored at, to reproduce that for future science or the science we're doing. So as you can see, we won't go into it, but this fleet is expanding rapidly. Our ground-based platforms are expanding rapidly. We've got autonomous vehicles collecting data daily. Rover, Pheno rover vehicle, as you can see, it's kitted out with various types of sensors, LiDAR to different image collection sensors to different GPS technology. All the works based on that we collect across all our farms. Probably this one's probably for pastures, but we're doing it more across using the LiDAR in our horticulture business as well. So the really good example for today is we're focusing around this. We hold this global perennial ryegrass reference population. It consists of 270,000 plants and representing 1,300 experimental varieties, weekly measurements in single plants. Had a video of the drone going across that and collecting that data, but it didn't work so well on the Zoom, so we cut that one out. But if you can see our Phenomic computational pipeline, you look at that, defining geolocation of single plants, defining geolocation on single rows, you can start to get a picture of how much we're collecting and the level of detail we need to collect, and obviously the associated metadata and data that we need to do that is obviously relying on a system to help us manage that. And these smart farms, and as I started, the geographical distribution of smart farms makes that a tricky challenge. The network capacity at these smart farms, as you guys would all be aware, with wherever you are in the world, there's different connectivity issues and network reliability, so it's a challenge. Connecting back to where you want to store things, geographical area I spoke about, and ultimately the variety of sensors coming into the market that we're using and purchasing, all with different proprietary platforms and technologies. We have to understand the formats to process that, the required policies, where we'll get to today, and staff capability. So honestly, big use case data on this, increased reliance on this new sensor data. So I don't think it's anything new, it's happening all around the world. So just quickly, this use case we'll cover, and obviously just being here today and talking, presenting, hopefully introduce ourselves to the user group is really an important part of us being here, and we can reach out. And we have reached out, obviously with the team at iRods, but some other users, only briefly, but hopefully after today we can reach out more. So obviously there's a problem around how we're connecting these sophisticated data technologies, the complexity in collecting, describing, assembling, transporting, analysis of that data. So what we've set up our initial use case, which we'll just briefly touch on today, to get that metadata discovery working and the workflow automation ingest of that data and try and do it as closest to the edges where it's collected. Obviously, because those challenges of a smart farms where they're located makes that harder, and it's changing in practices from traditional data management that researchers predominantly been used to out in the fields. So we tested this with obviously their iRods environment, and obviously ingesting into a storage that is again another change in capability using the S3, and obviously with that outcome to have that automated ingest and metadata capabilities. So we did it really, the basic for the use case was to look at some examples of the data that we wanted to then start to put into an iRod zone, into a catalogue, understand that, that get a common schema around that data type. So we looked at this reflectance data and other types of spectral data from sensors, simple things that you need to refer to back onto your discovery, and to just orientation, GPS position of the flights and timestamps. And obviously, this presentation we're pushing around a bit of why that's important, and everyone here will know why that's good metadata is important aspect of what we're doing. So all we really did in this first bit is really just get a change in the business process to uploading that data and trying into an S3 bucket, which is the gateway to our iRods environment and iRods server, to get them registered into the catalogue, extract that salient metadata and files into the in TIFF files so they're appropriately described, and tag those objects and collections to make them actually discoverable. Just this single use case where the business was doing different things across different research programs, like I said, the different sectors we're using. We're trying to bring it to a standard, support a standard and a capability with the research. So this is pretty boilerplate stuff. I'm sure you guys are all aware of, but the ingest policies registers objects in place and extracts that metadata, and we've successfully done that and apply the metadata into the catalogue, really to go back and just to demonstrate the ingest, discovery, egress, graphical representation, and this file presentation issue with the web dev and emerging new front ends. That's what I'll get to, just to some breakthroughs where we've got with our use case, just really engage with our scientists on some of those front ends and new UX environments or experiences that they require to simplify when you bring in a new technology or workflow process. So that's actually worked for us. You know, when you ingest into the buckets, it's scanned into the iRods zone and possibly many others, picking up not just that data there that we've classified and scanned, but the other metadata that comes along with those file types that we roll into the catalogue. You know, events possible generated for an audit trail, create opportunities for those richer data discoveries. So that was the premise of the use case, and allow any user within the business to view and access data and metadata from any client. So the client bit's the bit that we've hit that end of the use case with around, you know, what are those front ends and the browsers for the users to come in, because they're all the different requirements, and you know, like any web design or digital design product, you have to work with how the user wants to behave. So obviously these tools are the ones that you know, Jason and Daniel and the team have worked with us on to do our data discovery through MetaLinks. I think I've seen some other presentations. Obviously, MetaLinks is a tool that we use in this architecture. So we've done that, and we're following that pathway, similar as you use the DevRods tool. So again, don't really need to talk about DevRods, but that's how we manage this use case. But again, I mentioned the research is real requirements for that increased user interface and UX specifications. So putting more work into that front end, as we've built these policies out from those particular, and we've written more policies from the metadata that we're going to extract from that hyperspectral data. We've developed more. Judith Schwitzu's come on board in the team as our learning, obviously, the iRods environment, the stack, and starting to write some policies and written a swag of policies now from that use case, extracting that hyperspectral data. And we're going to have a look at a function. So Judith's policy she's written, I'm going to be a bit tricky here and make sure that this works. Hopefully we can all still see this. So we talk about, you know, making this process as simple as possible for the user. So here's an example of this with this Neo bot, easy upload to the iRods server. Obviously, this could just be a front end with a drop-down box, but as we more go into AI tools and making it easy for the user, so that this technology is not something that you know, obviously we have our administrators and data managers and policy writers that will do the work, but making it simple for the researchers. They understand what are the key metadata types that we're looking from this product, that they have to upload it into the iRods catalogue. You can see there's a spectral band here. What was that project that they were working on? In this instance, it was the dairy bio project. This relates to the pastures I referred to earlier, the ryegrass pastures, perennial pastures, managing this. Selecting the corresponding sensor to use. This is REM sensor. And then what was the band we used? So it was near infrared band. So that policy had been written, and then the signal that was used is the reflectance. So all that policy is now written, ready to be uploaded into the catalogue. Again, this is where we're testing the front end, and we're coming here. This is our what the user would see coming into our front end that we're just piloting. You can see it's a spectral band, dairy bio project, REM sensor, near infrared band, signal reflectance. It goes into the iRods catalogue, into the zone, as you can see. So, example there. I had them on here in case we had a little bit of a problem, but hopefully this is triggering some interest and engagement around where we're thinking around building our front ends from our client side to get the users engaged as we expand more of our across our different research projects and metadata types and policies that we write in. I think there's a real market to build more of these front ends specific to each use case, obviously. So yeah, pretty pumped with that pathway. I think it's a journey that's going to take off for us. So what we're seeing now is this emerging SmartFarm data infrastructure. And we hope, the way this is working, that each SmartFarm hosts their own IROD, their own application to manage their metadata and catalog. In this instance, just the UAV trial, but we see it coming across to the other instruments and sensors. Data is gathered of the protocol, periodically sensing it back to the service, S3 or the hybrid. We're building more, I guess, going back into having, as we collect close to the edge, and because of those connectivity issues, we're pushing more, building some more of that localized storage as well before it's synchronized. Some of the challenges just basically broadband into that business, getting that there is a challenge. So the SmartFarm hosts agricultural servers at each SmartFarm, and the data is replicated back to our hub, our agri-bio centre, where we have our HPC set up. And obviously the fun starts to happen then at that point. When that data is at rest, and we replicate that to the HPC for analytics, then we start to really talk about what services we can bring from that data, which is obviously what everyone is doing now in the world around their data service model and how they're engaging with their clients, and what that is through the relevant API gateways and how they want to share it to the front end. And just said those examples, but we've got our new front end. So just keep my eye on the. I'm going to get a warning somewhere for the time, but yeah, you can see that we're starting to, through that use case, you can see we're building out. We're obviously trying to bring the business on board and or engage the business, keep identifying the problems they're having, but we do a lot of our team. Carlos is online tonight, and Carlos has been critical in developing that user experience and the innovation in how the user wants to work with this architecture. So I appreciate the work he's done on this space. So you can see we have that logic workflow. IRODs now facilitate the data transfer and movement of data from remote geographical smart farms. We're deploying IRODs at the edge more and more so, and as our IoT platforms and environments and come on board. So that's going to be critical to how that edge collection works and the connectivity on farms. All our farms have been pretty much kitted out now with LoRaWAN gateways for obviously small data types and low data volumes, but the other higher dense farms have been kitted with Wi-Fi. It's still got its challenges, but it's helping. It's moving us to a step change and manage our data. Obviously, the benefit of virtualizing this data and correctly cataloging it to a zone, allowing this data to be optimized to a SmartFarm data architecture, which we're promoting back through the capability back through our virtual SmartFarm program. And ultimately, this is really then supporting our API strategy. It makes it easy for our researchers, for data to consume formats that our clients expect. So, we're working to give us more time to do our science and less time to worry about packaging that up, creating a service. As traditionally the role was all the way through the chain. Now we're getting better at this capability allows us to be able to hit that service layer. And IRODs to us is the way I envisage the implementation this next year, our second year of the membership. We're really using IRODs as that gateway to the clients we want to serve. So yeah, to wrap it up, really, we've got to where we got to with that use case and the work that Daniel Moore from IRODs had worked with us to get to where we had to go to complete that. And we've just sort of had now with Judith writing the policies and the front end thinking that we're doing. we've completed sort of that use case. We've brought in new capability around even just use of the cloud. Obviously, IROD's environment has been critical to that. Looking forward to the talk, I think, later today or tomorrow around that Terrell's talk around the S3 ingest capability. What the new capability, data discovery and workflow, this new AI and enhanced UX, I think is going to be a critical pathway for us. Obviously, the data classifications, reporting to a rapid assessment of data use as we see that more collaboration within the business and of the in the grain sector. We have this seed to landscape model, so from the genetics through to the planting of that grain. Obviously, we want to try and connect that data story up as best we can. So that started that journey, engagement in the business. Obviously, fast tracking data process. It's a big win, and obviously, what everyone's aim is in anyone doing science or any data management, really, obviously, that data sovereignty, preservation, reproducibility for researchers. So, yeah, that's pretty much it from Melbourne on this Wednesday evening.
Very good. Thank you, sir. We do have a couple questions. Vincent wants to know how data ingestion works, kind of more specifically. Is it just is it through the web interface, or do you have something else? I think I know the answer, but I'll let you answer that. How does the data get into iRods to begin with?
Yeah, well, like I said, we've been doing it through that S3. We'll get our data into S3 and then bring that S3, and iRods is in that environment as well. It's sitting on our AWS environment in our servers, so we're replicating, calling from that environment in there. But yeah, we've been doing different pathways, different methods, Terrell, but specifically I'd prefer more to the technical guys on that completely, because we've had some challenges, like I said, with our connectivity and our path into that to where we are in the region. So like I said, we've had a huge step change from a manual process to the automated ingest process, and we've only just really written those policies as with Judith coming on board to be able to do that. So probably not helping too much with that question, but
that's all right. A kind of a follow-up from Raja. He says, wants to know if there's any real-time data gathering done, or is it all strictly offline, kind of store and forward?
No, well, that's real time's where we're going to, but we have to set our architecture up to do our real time. So we haven't got there. Like I said, our farms have only just been kitted out with LoRaWAN and Wi-Fi now, and our IoT platforms connected to that. And as I said, this is the real first use case of our edge computings. But now we're getting our connectivity issues sorted. Our policies, then real-time data, obviously. We want to make it as easy as possible for researchers to get that data in from those devices. But as we know, they're not small data loads from those from that multispectral, from that UAV flights. So they're still manual. It's still using a manual pathway to get them into the bucket and then into the catalogue.
Nirav asks, do you have any Amazon policies in place to manage the S3 bucket content? Are you moving things to Glacier after a certain number of days, or is it's pretty vanilla right now? Yes,
we don't have too much of the next challenge for us is our cloud strategy and integration with this environment. Like I said, we are putting back some servers back on our farms because of that scale and challenges there. So yeah, the development of our data smart, the future ready strategy obviously it's a hybrid model. So we'll get the cloud policies will be written in there. I think that's what I mentioned about some of the work that you guys are doing, leading all your members. That'd be the part that we'd be more than happy to collaborate into that world.
And one other question from Rajay. He says he wants to know if you actually work with what used to be known as the iPlant consortium, or Cyverse itself. Do you have any connection with Cyverse?
We've only just started with through Daniel, and of gateway to some of our researchers that do. have that connection. So there's been some back and forth emails going forward, and I left it to the researchers. Like I said, our job in Carlos and myself is to engage and build capability and bring in new technology and systems for the business, and to pilot and test and get them to adopt. There's existing relationships there, but we haven't really moved them as where we'd like. So ultimately, we've heard about the synergies and some of the things that Sovereigns are doing in the space that could help us enormously. And we're hoping, it'd be great if we're there in person and we took over. Obviously, the plan was for Judith and Funchi who've been doing this work to head over to the user group, because they're the ones that are going to be the technical specialists in the environment. But unfortunately, you got left with me again, just giving a high-level pitch.
We're very lucky to have you. It's great. I do know that Cyverse does have a lot of drone and LiDAR stuff. I think that's what Dan had worked with you on to begin with.
Yeah.
Very good. Are there any questions anybody want to raise their hand and ask live on the audio? Otherwise, I think we might have covered it. All right, well, thank you, Kieran. You may now go to bed. I appreciate it. Excellent talk.
Thanks, Dale. See you around.
Thank you so much.